Welcome back, guys. Me and Mr. Sean are here for session number two, taking you through kind of the topic of transition here with your homerooms. If you remembered last class, previously on transition time with Mark and Sean, you guys talked about the idea of emerging adulthood, and hopefully you had some good conversations about that. Today, I guess the topic is really kind of like on the word transition. In Sean's curriculum that he created, he drew a lot from this book. I think it's called Emerging Adulthood. And there's a really excellent quote that I'm going to read, and Sean, that I'm going to ask you to respond to. So this guy, Jeffrey Arnett, right?
Yep.
He said, perhaps the most pervasive, consistent theme in the lives of emerging adults is the fact of their frequent and varied major life transitions. To an extent matched by no other time in the life course, emerging adults enjoy and endure multiple, layered, big, and often unanticipated life transitions. Oh, so good. Yeah. Elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, so I think, I mean, it's just so true. Like you spend, and for many of you, right, like there's once again, recognizing all of you are coming from different places. Some of you maybe have just moved, so you may not be coming from the same place, but the next 10 years of your life likely will involve you moving away from home, having multiple different roommates and living in different places. If you go to college, you're going to be there for around 4 years. And then right as you're starting to really settle in there, you're going to be taking off and doing something else. You might work multiple jobs. You might, get married, start a family. So it's just like so much shifting happening over the next 10 years. And so it is like constant transition. And so transition is not just this thing that like is coming your way as you graduate high school and then you'll never experience it again. Transition is coming. And I think often we do a better job of prepping people for transition before marriage. You do premarital counseling to prepare for what's coming your way. Before people have kids, they go out and buy all these books about what to expect when you're expecting a kid. And but often with seniors, there's this odd thing that we like try to talk to you about it, and you guys are like, whatever, like no big deal. I like that this idea of emerging adulthood is closely tied to transitions. And I want to quickly like define transition for you guys, because I think we often can misunderstand what transition means. And I found this to be super helpful as I've gone through major transitions in life, and really just, I think finally, I'm a year and a half into Thailand, like finally exiting, feeling like I'm in transition. So I think we often get the term change and transition confused with each other. Change is all of the external things that change around you. Moving from, you're no longer going to be a high school student. You're no longer going to be living in the same place you're living. Like all of these things around you will change. Your friends that surround you might change, on and on. The weather around you, the climate, etc. Transition is your own internal response to those external changes. And so if you've ever had the experience where like you're sitting in English class and the bell rings and you just finished a test and you feel like you bombed that test. And so you have the passing period and you walk and you sit down in your next class. Maybe you're in like Mr. Todd's class now. And you're sitting there, your surroundings have changed, but you might internally, emotionally still be resolving what just happened in that previous class, right? So you have changed, but that transition into actually being present, your body often arrives somewhere before you do emotionally. That is transition. And so that's the hope here, is to allow there to be the shortest gap for you guys between the change and your internal transition to being present where you are.
I like what that quote speaks to, calling transitions like really the transition to adulthood. There's multiple kind of transitions, and they're layered and they're big. Yeah.
And often unanticipated.
Yeah. Something else that's in your curriculum, just like I think it's like a really practical tool. It's complicated and big, but I think there's so much like practical practical takeaways that could be gained from it is what you call your stages of transition chart. I forget if you got it from somewhere, if you like adapted it from a source, but
Yeah.
in your homeroom, guys, you're going to have a chance to like look at it in more detail. But Sean, could you just kind of introduce it for everybody and maybe like give a couple highlights from the chart?
Yeah, yeah. So this is adapted from a book, kind of like one of the first people who was writing about third culture kids and their experiences of transition. And so a lot of transition theory, a woman named Ruth Van Rieken and a guy named Dave Pollock. Um, so this chart, once you can kind of understand what it is, I think it's just incredibly helpful. So I want to explain what I don't know if you're going to have it in hand or if we'll put it up on the screen, but hopefully you can follow along with what I'm saying. Basically, there's 4 or 5 stages, right? There's the involvement stage, which is probably where many of you have been. There's the leaving stage, which is probably where all of you are now. I wrote the term senioritis in there because I think that idea of the feeling of senioritis is really a natural transition stage of leaving. The transition stage, which is basically once you have left, once you've walked across that stage and graduated, but you have not yet arrived physically in the next place. You're just in this like in between place, which for me personally, when I've been in that place is scary. There's the entering stage, and like can be really helpful to understand that this entering stage can last up to a year. As I just said, I have been in Thailand for about 1.5 years now, and I feel like I am just really moving out of the entering stage back into the involvement stage. And so as we look through these 3 stages, 4 or 5 stages, I want to talk about 3 different ways. These are now the columns. The first is, what is your social status in that stage? So how others are responding to you. So when you're involved, when you belong, like people know your name. You don't have to, they know you by name. You're part of the in group. They know who you are, etc. The social posture is talking about how you respond to others. So you feel, and I have a typo here for responsible and responsible twice. It should be something else. But there's a commitment. Like I am committed to this place. I'm committed to the people around me. I'm in, like I'm invested in this place. And then the psychological experience, what's going on in your head is you feel secure and safe. The reality is like, we want to get you from this top green stage again to that green stage as quickly as possible, but there's really no way to do it without passing through these middle 3 stages. And so what I think we would like you to do is take some time looking at this leaving senioritis stage and see, are you feeling these things, right? In what ways are you getting closure or farewells? Are you feeling withdrawal from other people, like other people withdrawing from you? Are you, how are you responding to other people? Does this feel real? And what's your internal, experience? So do you resonate with any of these or not? And then looking ahead to the transition and entering, I think it's helpful for two ways, 2 reasons. The first is for you to know this is coming your way. Changes or transitions that you are not prepared for can be harder to deal with. So by looking ahead at these, it can help you just be more prepared that there are challenges. It may be really, like some of you may breeze through it. Some of you may struggle. Like I feel like I struggle more than the normal person because I'm an overthinker and I'm a worrier. And I know some of you are like me. I'm amazed by people who just like are unaffected by everything. But I want to give you guys the chance to look ahead, to know these things are coming. But I think even more helpful is that when you are in it, I just had so many times last year where I just felt so frustrated with myself. Like, why is this so hard? Like, why am I struggling? And I would get really down on myself. I'd be like, I just must be I just must stink. Like, I just must be really bad at this. And I get really down on myself, and I would bring this back up and look at it and be like, oh no, this is normal. Like I feel isolated, or I feel like I'm like, don't have close friends yet. And I don't know who I can trust to talk to. Like, I remember my freshman year in college, I like dated a girl, we broke up and I didn't have anybody to talk to. So I wrote poetry for like 2 months of my life. And I'd never have written poetry before or ever again, but it was just a way for me to get my thoughts out. because I didn't have trusted people to share with yet. And so more than anything, I hope this is something you guys can come back to be gracious with yourself and like forgiving to yourself for if you're struggling in any way, that it's normal and actually expected.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, obviously it's a time with a lot of questions you're asking, just questions that are I don't know, bubbling under the surface. I'll end with this quote. Sean quotes the poet Rilke, I think is how you pronounce his name, in his curriculum, and we both think it's really an amazing way to kind of leave you guys for now. So this is him writing to a young poet, sort of like a young person, and he says, "You were so young, so much before all beginning, and I want to ask you, as best I can, dear sir, to have patience with everything unresolved in your heart." And this is the key line, I think. "And try to have love for the questions themselves, like locked rooms or books written in a very foreign language. Do not seek out the answers now, which cannot be given to you because you cannot live them. And what matters is to live everything. Live the questions for now. Perhaps then, without noticing it, you will gradually come on some far-off day to live your way into the answer." So good. I don't know. Any final words?
I was about to quote you by saying, as Mark would say, so good. That's like your phrase in my brain.
Awesome.
But it is. I just think it's so good, and I don't even honestly. I struggle to put into words why I love this so much. It just, as I mentioned, I'm an overthinker. I'm a worrier. I have a million questions, and I want to know the answer. I don't like things being unresolved. I want to know what's coming my way. Like, and I remember in high school graduating, being like, who am I going to marry, and where am I going to, what job am I going to be? What am I going to major in? Like, who are going to be my new friends? And just so many questions. And I think this gave me permission to just like slow down and say, like, this is what life is. You're going to live these out, and asking the questions is good, but love the questions and live them out. And you don't have to figure them out until it's time to figure them out. So for me, it slows me down. It gives me permission to enjoy the journey, and it's okay to not know. And so even though we're talking about trying to prep you for what's coming next and trying to give you as many tools in your tool belt as you can get to transition well, the reality is each of you are about to step off into your own journey and your own story. And we hope that you can do it in a way that allows you to love the process and that it's good.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. Yeah, guys. So we hope you enjoy kind of looking at this chart in more detail, and hopefully having some good discussions in your homerooms. And we're going to be back, and what we're going to give you in the next few sessions after this, I would say, are kind of more like practical, like action oriented advice and tools. So that's coming up to be continued. See you guys.